I'm part of a team studying what happens to human consciousness after we die. We discovered something horrifying. How does it work? Death, I mean. How does it work? That was the point of the entire study, the trial. What happens when we die? Where do we go? What does it feel like, and is it even worth the hassle? Is there a heaven? A hell? We didn't know, but we wanted to. I suppose that's where everything went wrong, right out of the gate. We wanted to play God, or at least learn the rules of the game, to see behind the curtain for just a moment, if only so we could know what to expect when the lights went out and we said that final good night. I'm telling you now, swearing to you that we never intended for things to go wrong the way that they did. The people that lost their lives knew what they were getting into. They signed releases. Paperwork. They agreed to let us do what we did, just so long as we promised to handsomely compensate their families. And we did. We held up our end of the bargain to the tune of $13 million. But things like this, they never work out the way they're meant to. I knew that. I did. I think that on some level all of us did, but the people who were funding us had no idea. They wanted results. Be messy, they said, if that's what it takes. Do whatever you need to do to figure out what happens in the sequel to life, and make it snappy because this funding is running on an hourglass, and that sand is slipping. So we cut corners. We pushed people in ways that, in retrospect, were irresponsible. Dangerous. But we did it for the common good. We did it for you, for all of us, for the benefit of future generations who could look death in the eye without the horror of not knowing what came next. It was a good thing. It really was. The first death went smoothly. An older woman, 87 years old and dying of liver failure, was hooked up to our state-of-the-art equipment that had one job and one job only, to bring them back. To let them taste the cold kiss of death, and then tear their soul back into the land of the living long enough to give us a play-by-play of what happened while they were away. I know. This has happened before. People have come back from clinical death plenty of times, haven't they? Sure. That's true, but never after 3 days. The 3-day timeline was a tricky one because even though the corpse was dead, even though the cadaver was cold and beginning to cellularly decompose, we needed to keep it fresh enough to host life. Don't get me wrong, the life it hosted didn't last long, but it lasted long enough. I still remember the pulse of excitement that shot through the room when the old woman opened her eyes. Her first rancid breath drew applause. Agnes, Roger, our research lead, said. He stood by her bedside, craned over her wearing a token gloves. Can you hear my voice? The woman nodded. More applause. We watched the two of them from behind a layer of one-way glass, all of us in our lab coats, while Roger communed with her breathing corpse in what was practically a freezer. Their voices carried over a loudspeaker,